The oven door slammed shut like a judge's gavel, sealing Daniel's fate in a hiss of steam and scorched regret. "You're done here, Harper. Pack your shit and get out, before I call the cops on your kind." The owner's voice cracked through the kitchen, laced with venom that tasted like the bitter crust of a failed loaf. In that instant, as flour clouds settled like funeral dust on his trembling hands, Daniel realized the American dream he'd kneaded into every sunrise batch wasn't baked for men who loved like he did. It started with a kiss. Not some grand, cinematic lip lock under fireworks, but a stolen brush in the walk-in cooler, the kind of quiet rebellion that happens when two guys who've been dancing around their feelings for months finally crack. Daniel Harper, 28, with calloused palms from years of rolling dough and a heart as soft as brioche, had been the heart of Harlan's Hearth Bakery for 6 years. Tucked in the Rust Belt hollows of Elmwood, Ohio, a town where cornfields stretched like forgotten promises and the local diner still served family values with extra bacon, the bakery was Daniel's sanctuary. He'd risen before dawn every day, coaxing life from yeast and flour, turning grief into golden loaves that fed the mill workers, the church ladies, and the kids racing bikes down Main Street. Matthew Klein was the wild card in that dough. 32, broad-shouldered with a jawline that could cut glass and eyes like polished walnut. He'd started as a delivery driver 2 years back, but quickly became Daniel's shadow in the kitchen. Matt, with his easy laugh that rumbled like thunder over Lake Erie and hands that knew exactly how to cradle a fragile tart without bruising it, made the long shifts bearable. They'd bonded over burnt batches and late-night cleanups, trading stories of small-town suffocation. Daniel's runaway mom, leaving him with a Bible-thumping grandma. Matt's dad who coached high school football and expected a son who'd carry the family legacy straight as a ruler. But Elmwood didn't bend for bends in the road. Whispers started when folks noticed how Matt lingered too long at the counter, how Daniel's smile lit up only when the delivery truck rolled in. Then came the kiss, frantic, flour-smeared, born of a rain-soaked afternoon when the shop emptied early and the world outside blurred to gray. Matt's lips on Daniel's, tasting of vanilla extract and unspoken vows, right there amid the chilled crates of butter and berries. It was pure, electric, the kind of moment that rewires your soul. But purity has a price in places like Elmwood. The door to the cooler swung open not 5 minutes later. Harlan Voss, the owner, a paunchy 60-something with a face like overproofed rye and a Bible verse tattooed on his forearm, froze in the threshold, his eyes bulging like overfilled eclairs. "What in the hellfire is this?" he bellowed, his voice echoing off the metal shelves. Daniel pulled back first, heart hammering, but Matt just stood there, cheeks flushed, saying nothing. Harlan's gaze drilled into Daniel, then flicked to Matt with something almost like pity. "You!" He jabbed a meaty finger at Daniel. "Out. Now. This is my shop, my rules, and your deviance ends here." The firing happened in the back alley, rain turning the gravel to mud that sucked at Daniel's boots like accusations. Harlan didn't yell, worse. He preached. "The Lord's got no place for abominations in his house of bread." He spat, shoving a final paycheck into Daniel's hand, the envelope damp and crumpled. "And don't think about slinging mud my way. Elmwood knows its own." Daniel nodded numbly, the check's weight like lead in his pocket. He glanced back at the kitchen door, hoping, praying, Matt would burst out, fists clenched, ready to fight for what they'd just ignited. But the door stayed shut. Matt stayed silent. That silence haunted Daniel through the weeks that followed, a ghost in every empty morning. He crashed on a cousin's lumpy couch in Cleveland, 40 miles east, scraping by on odd jobs, stocking shelves at a big box store, washing dishes in a greasy spoon where the cooks called him pretty boy, with leers that made his skin crawl. But the money burned a hole. He squirreled it away, every dollar a seed planted in revenge's fertile soil. Nights blurred into fevered dreams of ovens roaring like Judgment Day, of Matt's hands on his waist, pulling him close in the dark. Why hadn't he spoken up? Was it fear? Shame? Or had that kiss been just a whim? A straight guy's curiosity sated in the cold? Elmwood festered in Daniel's mind like under-kneaded dough, stiff, unyielding. Harlan's hearth kept churning out its mediocre wares, dry scones and muffins that tasted of cardboard piety. Customers grumbled but stayed loyal, bound by habit and Harlan's church ties. Word spread quick about the incident, twisted into tales of Daniel groping Matt, of moral decay invading the town's wholesome core. Grandma Ellis, who'd slipped him extra tips for years, crossed the street when she saw him on a rare visit home. "Pray on it, boy," she muttered once, her eyes wet with the disappointment of a woman who'd buried 2 husbands and still believed in miracles. Daniel's miracle came in fragments. A barista gig at a hipster coffee joint paid better, enough to fund community college night classes in business. There, amid spreadsheets and supply chain lectures, he plotted. Harlan's was drowning, Harlan's gambling debts from Steelers games and backroom poker piling up like unsold inventory. Daniel overheard it from a supplier buddy, a grizzled Italian named Gino who delivered flour to both spots. "Voss is leveraged to his eyeballs, kid." Banks circling like vultures. Daniel's pulse quickened. He worked doubles, skipped meals, channeled every ache into a plan as precise as a piping bag. By spring, he'd saved 20 grand, the down payment on a dream Harlan couldn't fathom. He drove back to Elmwood under a sky bruised purple, the Ohio Turnpike a ribbon of resolve. The real estate agent, a slick millennial named Tyler with a man bun and 0 fucks for small-town drama, met him at a diner off Route 6. "Harlan's desperate," Tyler said, sliding over comps. "List price 50, but he'll bite at 35. Cash talks." Daniel nodded, signing the offer with a hand steady as risen dough. No fanfare, no press. Just a wire transfer and a closing date whispered like a secret. The day he took ownership, Daniel stood across the street in a thrift store suit that pinched at the shoulders, watching Harlan haul boxes into a U-Haul, his face sallow as stale bread. Matt was there, God. Matt was there, loading crates with that same broad back Daniel had traced in stolen moments. He looked thinner, shadows under his eyes like thumbprints of guilt. Daniel's chest tightened, a mix of fury and longing that tasted like salted caramel, sweet, sharp, impossible to ignore. He wanted to cross the street, grab Matt by the collar, demand answers in a voice that cracked like eggshells. But he didn't. Not yet. This was his move, silent as midnight proofing. Word hit Elmwood like a summer squall. "Harper, that queer kid, owns Harlan's now." The whispers turned to stares as Daniel flipped the sign to "closed for renovations" and hired a crew to gut the place. He kept the name Harlan's Hearth, but infused it with his soul. Exposed brick walls from the original mill, skylights flooding the counters with light, a pride flag subtly stitched into the window valances. He rehired Gino for supplies, poached bakers from Cleveland with promises of creative freedom. And Matt? Daniel sent the offer letter certified mail. Position, head pastry chef. Start, next Monday. No questions asked. Monday dawned crisp, the air thick with the scent of fresh paint and possibility. Daniel arrived early, apron starched, rolling pins gleaming like swords on the rack. He busied himself with inventory, hard a war drum, until the back door creaked open. Matt stepped in, toolbox in hand. Wait, toolbox? Not an apron. Dan, he said, voice rough as gravel, setting the box down like it weighed a ton. I got your letter. But I ain't here to bake. I'm here to fix what I broke. Daniel froze, a bag of flour half unfurled in his grip. The kitchen, still half-shadowed, felt like the cooler all over again. Charged, vulnerable. Fix it? He echoed, the words tasting like ash. You mean the part where you let Harlan gut me alive? Or the part where you vanished like smoke from a cooling rack? Matt winced, stepping closer, close enough that Daniel caught the faint whiff of his cologne, cedar and regret. I was scared. Okay, Dad's dying, the town's watching, and I panicked. But losing you, that scared me more. Every damn day since, the air thickened, yeast blooming in the silence. Daniel wanted to hate him, God, he did, but hate's a tough rise without leaven. Matt's eyes, those walnut depths, held storms Daniel had weathered before. Why now? Daniel whispered, setting the flour down, his voice a plea wrapped in thorns. Matt reached out, hesitant, fingers brushing Daniel's wrist. Because this place? It's us. The dough we punched down, the nights we shaped dreams. Harlan's gone, but we're not. Let me stay. Not as chef as me. They stood there, inches apart, the ovens humming like a heartbeat. Daniel's resolve cracked, just a hair, enough for light to seep in. He nodded, once, and handed Matt an apron. Start with the croissants. We've got a town to feed. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was a start, a proofing in the warmth of what could be. As the weeks unfurled, the bakery rose like phoenix pastry. Daniel's recipes, infused with lavender from his grandma's garden, chilies smuggled from a Mexican market run, drew lines out the door. Folks came tentative at first, lured by the aroma of cinnamon twists that whispered redemption. Old customers thawed, the mill workers grabbing bear claws with gruff nods, church ladies sampling scones and murmuring about second chances. Even Grandma Ellis slipped in one Tuesday, her arthritis-gnarled hands clutching a 50-cent tip. Proud of you, Danny boy, she said, eyes twinkling. Even if the good book and I don't always see eye to eye, Matt stayed, his presence a quiet anchor. Their touches lingered now, brushing hips in the tight aisle, shared glances over the mixer that said more than words. But trust rebuilds slow, like sourdough culture. One night, after closing, with the moon silvering the counters, Matt pulled Daniel into the walk-in, the same damn cooler. No running this time, he murmured, backing Daniel against the shelves, lips hovering like a promise. The kiss ignited, deeper than before, hands mapping scars and hopes. I love you, Matt breathed against Daniel's neck, the words a balm on old wounds. Scared or not, straight-laced town or not. You, Daniel melted, then pulled back, searching those eyes. Prove it. Every day. Bake with me. Matt grinned, that thunder laugh rumbling free. Deal, but Elmwood's underbelly churned. Harlan, slinging beers at the VFW hall, stewed in his downfall. That faggot bought my legacy. He'd slur to anyone who'd listen, nursing grudges with cheap whiskey. Whispers turned to plots when he crossed paths with Eddie Klein, Matt's uncle, a bitter ex-cop with a badge-shaped grudge against the lifestyle. Eddie, who'd always eyed Matt's softness with disdain, saw Harlan's rage as kin. "We take it back," Eddie growled one fog-drenched night at the hall. "Expose them. Make the town see what they're feeding their kids." The sabotage started subtle. Slashed tires on the delivery van, anonymous reviews calling the bakery a den of sin. Daniel shrugged it off at first, chalking it up to growing pains. But then came the fire, small, contained, a trash bin in the alley licked by flames that danced like accusations. Fire marshal ruled arson, and Daniel's blood ran cold. Matt, bandaging a singed hand from the cleanup, went white. "Harlan," he whispered. "Or Eddie." I heard him talking. The confrontation brewed like a storm front. Daniel, fueled by a mix of terror and titanium, will march to the VFW under a sky-spitting sleet. Harlan was there, slumped at the bar, but it was Eddie who rose, meaty fists clenched. "You got no place here, boy," Eddie snarled, breath sour as spoiled milk. "Ruinin' my nephew, ruinin' this town." Daniel held his ground, voice steady as a whisk through batter. "This town's big enough for all of us, Eddie. Even the ones you hate." Matt burst in then, face thunderous, having tailed Daniel on instinct. "Enough, Uncle," he roared, stepping between them, chest heaving. "Daniel's more man than you've ever been. And I'm done hiding for you, for Dad, for anyone." The bar fell silent, patrons shifting like uneasy dough. Eddie lunged, but Matt didn't flinch, taking the swing on the jaw with a crack that echoed like a dropped tray. Blood trickled, warm and red, but Matt stood tall. "Get out," he said to Eddie, low and final. "Or I will." Harlan slunk away too, mumbling curses, his empire reduced to echoes. Eddie stormed out into the night, the door slamming like a final proof. Daniel pulled Matt into a hug, tasting salt and iron on his lips. "You fought," Daniel murmured, threading his voice. "For us." The town watched, then turned. News rippled. Matt Klein, football legacy, standing up for the queer baker. Grandma Ellis baked her first pie in years, dropping it off with a note. "Love wins, kid." Lines grew longer, not just for loaves but for the story, a place where second chances rose warm and whole. Summer baked Elmwood golden, the bakery's windows steamed with success. Daniel and Matt, side by side, shaped a future, wedding cakes for couples who'd hidden rings in glove compartments, pride popovers that flew off shelves. One evening, as fireflies winked like scattered sugar, Matt knelt in the garden behind the shop, a simple band glinting in his palm. "Marry me, Dan. Let's make this hearth ours, forever." Daniel's yes was a whisper on the wind, sealed with a kiss that bloomed eternal. In the heart of Ohio's quiet rebellion, they'd baked not just bread, but belonging. And Elmwood, chewed slow, then swallowed whole, proof that even the stiffest crust yields to the right heat. The proposal hung in the air like the scent of proofing dough, sweet, inevitable, transformative. Daniel stared at the ring, a humble silver band etched with a tiny rolling pin, and felt the world tilt on its axis. Not in the dramatic Hollywood spin of confetti and cheers, but in the steady, American way. A man on one knee in a backyard overgrown with wild mint, fireflies scripting their own Morse code of yes. "Matt," Daniel breathed, pulling him up into an embrace that crushed the air from both lungs. "You crazy son of a gun." "Yeah. God, yeah." They laughed then, the kind that bubbles up from the gut. raw and releasing, as if all the tension of the past year, the firing, the silence, the flames, had fermented into this fizzy joy. Matt slipped the ring on Daniel's finger, his own hands trembling just a touch, calluses catching on the metal like familiar friends. "Figured we'd seal it with something proper," he said, nodding toward the bakery's back door. Inside, waiting on the counter amid sketches of menu expansions, was a cake, 2 tiers of lemon chiffon, frosted in buttercream swirls that mimicked rolling hills, topped with edible flowers and a single marzipan heart. Elmwood's summer stretched lazy and languid, but for Daniel and Matt, crackled with purpose. Wedding plans wove into bakery rhythms, tastings doubled as date nights, vendor calls laced with lovers' banter. Daniel dreamed big. A fall ceremony in the corn maze out by the old Voss farm, now a pumpkin patch. Irony's sweetest icing, with hay bales for pews and Harlan's hearth loaves breaking bread for all. Matt, ever the pragmatist with a poet's heart, handled the invites, handwritten on recycled paper, scented faintly of vanilla, sent to the unlikely allies who'd emerged from the woodwork. Grandma Ellis, of course, front and center. Gino the supplier, with his booming laugh and tales of old-world loves. Even Tyler the realtor, who showed up uninvited with champagne and a bicurious ally badge pinned to his flannel. But joy's a fragile bake, too much heat, and it scorches. The first crack came via a letter, slipped under the bakery door like a serpent in Eden. No stamp, just block letters on yellowed legal pad. Unnatural union won't last. Repent or burn. Daniel found it at dawn, the paper crisp against his bare feet, and crumpled it before Matt could see. Just some Bible thumpers BS. He lied over coffee, forcing a grin that tasted like flat soda. Matt eyed him sharp but let it slide, too busy plotting a surprise menu item, Harper Klein honey buns, sticky sweet with a kick of bourbon glaze. The threats escalated, shadows lengthening like overproofed loaves. Tires slashed again, this time on Daniel's truck, parked innocently by the library where he'd been researching queer history for a bakery book club. Then the calls, heavy breathing, slurred scripture, hang-ups that left the line humming like a haunted mixer. Daniel traced it to Eddie, Matt's uncle, holed up in a trailer on the town's edge, stewing in unemployment and unpaid tabs. "He's harmless," Matt insisted after the third incident, though his knuckles whitened on the steering wheel. Dad's illness softened him once. Maybe this will too. Matt's dad, Coach Klein, was a ghost in the flesh now, bedridden in the family home, a Victorian relic on Elmwood's Hill, tubes snaking like accusations from his arms. Ellis had whittled him down, but his eyes still burned with the fire of Friday night lights. Matt visited weekly, duties yoke heavy as a sack of flour, bearing news he sanitized. The bakery's boom, Daniel's good influence, never the ring or the plans. He wouldn't understand, Matt confessed one night, head in Daniel's lap as rain pattered the roof. But losing you? That's not an option. Daniel stroked his hair, fingers threading through waves damp with worry. Family's not blood, Matt. It's who shows up. He meant it, God. He did, but doubt nibbled like mice in the pantry. What if Eddie poisoned the well? What if Coach's final days turned Matt's resolve to dust? The high point hit mid-July, a pop-up pride event Daniel orchestrated in the town square. Elmwood had never seen the like. Rainbow awnings over stalls, drag queens from Cleveland lip-syncing Dolly under the gazebo, Harlan's hearth pastries flying faster than flags in a gale. Daniel manned the booth, apron emblazoned with love rises, slinging lavender shortbread and stories of second chances. Matt hovered, proud as punch, until Coach Klein wheeled in, Eddie at the handles, face twisted like a curdled roux. The square hushed as they approached, the drag queen's mic feedback a shrill prelude. Coach's eyes locked on Matt, then Daniel, the pieces clicking in his withered frame. "Matthew," he rasped, voice a gravel whisper amplified by pain. "What's this circus?" Matt knelt, hand on the chair's arm, steady as stone. "It's life, Dad. Real life. Daniel's my fiancé. And this town's learning to love it." Eddie snorted, but Coach held up a trembling hand, silencing him. His gaze raked Daniel, assessing, not condemning. "The baker," he murmured. "Heard you bought Voss out." Ballsy. A pause. Eternity in a breath. "Treat my boy right, or I'll haunt you from hell." It wasn't blessing. Not quite. But it was thaw ice cracking on a frozen pond. Daniel nodded, throat tight. "Yes, sir. With everything I've got." Eddie wheeled Coach away, but not before hissing to Matt, "This ain't over, boy. Family first." The threat lingered, a bitter aftertaste amid the square's cheers. That night, as fireworks bloomed over the fields, Daniel and Matt made love on a blanket in the backyard, bodies tangled like vines, whispers fierce against the dark. "We're unbreakable," Daniel vowed, tracing Matt's scars, physical and otherwise. Matt pulled him closer, breath hot. "Damn right. Bake tough." August brought heat waves and harder hits. The bakery's oven died mid-rush, a coil snapping like a spine under stress. Sabotage, the repairman confirmed. Wires frayed deliberate. Daniel closed for the day, pacing the empty shop, while Matt confronted Eddie at the trailer. "Stay away," Matt growled through the screen door, fists balled. "Or I swear, Uncle, blood won't mean shit." Eddie's laugh was a bark. "You're choosing that pervert over kin? Coach'll die knowing he raised a traitor." The words landed like a sucker punch, but Matt walked away, back to Daniel, who waited with takeout from the diner, fries and forgiveness. They ate on the floor, cross-legged like kids, plotting resilience. Backup ovens, security cams, a lawyer from Akron versed in hate crimes. "We're not victims," Daniel said, dipping a fry in ketchup. "We're the damn revolution." Matt's grin was wolfish. With sprinkles, fall crept in on crimson leaves, wedding date set for October's harvest moon. Invites went out, RSVPs trickling like warm honey. 80 souls, a mosaic of misfits and miracles. Grandma Ellis offered her quilt for the altar, stitched with stars and secrets. Gino promised limoncello flown from Sicily. But Eddie lurked, a specter at the edges, poison pen letters now laced with specifics. "I know where you sleep, lovers." The climax crashed the week before the wedding. A Friday night rehearsal turned reckoning. The corn maze glowed with lanterns, hay bales arranged in a heart-shaped aisle, friends milling with cider cups. Daniel, in a flannel that hugged his frame like a promise, adjusted fairy lights when the truck roared up. Eddie's beat-up Ford, headlights slicing the dusk like knives. He stumbled out, bottle in hand, eyes wild. "You think this mockery flies?" he bellowed, staggering toward the group. "I'll burn it all." Chaos erupted, guests scattering, lanterns toppling in a cascade of sparks. Matt surged forward, tackling Eddie to the dirt, the bottle shattering in a spray of glass and whiskey. "Stop!" Matt roared, pinning his uncle's arms. This ends now. Daniel rushed in, heart pounding, pulling Matt off as sirens wailed distant. Eddie thrashed, spitting curses. Coach's dying because of you. Shame on the Klein name. Coach's ambulance arrived then. Summoned by a panicked call, his frail form wheeled into the fray. The old man's eyes, dimming like embers, fixed on the tableau. Matt bloodied, Daniel steadying him, Eddie cuffed by arriving deputies. Enough, Coach whispered, voice a thread. Eddie. Let go. Let them love. It was his last command, delivered with the weight of a lifetime's playbook revised. Eddie deflated, sobs racking him as medics loaded Coach away, not to die that night, but to linger, watching from his window as Elmwood exhaled. The wedding went on, battered but beautiful. Under that harvest moon, with bruises fading and hearts full, Daniel and Matthew vowed, in sickness and sabotage, richer in revenge, poorer in pretense. The town turned out, 200 strong, toasting with honey buns and hope. Harlan's hearth had baked its masterpiece. Not cake, but community. In the years that followed, the bakery expanded. A second location in Cleveland, classes for queer youth on claiming their slice. Coach passed peacefully that winter, his eulogy read by Matt. Love the game, win or lose. Eddie faded to Florida, letters arriving sporadic, apologies scrawled shaky, a slow rise toward grace. Daniel and Matt, they grew old in aprons, hands linked over counters, teaching grandkids the alchemy of flour and forgiveness. Elmwood, once a crust of conformity, softened, proof that even the hardest hearts yield to the warmth of what's right. Winter wrapped Elmwood in a hush of snow, blanketing the scars of autumn like confectioner's sugar on a gingerbread roof. The wedding's echo lingered in every corner of Harlan's hearth. Framed photos on the walls of hay bale vows and moonlit dances, a happily ever after sign chalked on the blackboard menu. Daniel and Matt navigated the newlywed haze with the same rhythm they'd found in the kitchen, seamless, spiced with inside jokes and stolen kisses amid the whirl of pie crusts. But marriage, like a complex bake, reveals its layers slow, the sweet highs, the chewy middles, the occasional bitter char. Their first holiday season as husbands dawned with ambition. Daniel envisioned a Yuletide Yields event. Midnight cookie decorating, carols crooned over hot cider, a charity drive for the local shelter where Matt volunteered on off days. We'll stuff stockings with scones, Daniel declared one frosty morning, sketching flyers while snow tapped the windows like impatient fingers. Matt, nursing a beard now threaded with early silver, chuckled from the stool where he perched, tallying inventory. As long as you don't turn me into one of your elf experiments. Last year's fruitcake nearly felled Uncle Eddie. Remember the fruitcake incident? The fruitcake. A relic from pre-wedding peace offerings, baked heavy with bourbon and regret, delivered to Eddie's trailer in a bid for bridge mending. Eddie had taken one bite, face contorting like dough gone awry, before hurling it at a stray cat. Poison from perverts, he'd yelled, but the cat survived, fatter and friendlier, becoming the shop's unofficial mascot Mittens, with a rainbow collar. It was progress, glacial but real, and Daniel clung to it like a well-set glaze. The event prep flew by in a flurry of flower and fairy lights. Grandma Ellis commandeered the knitting circle for ornament duty, her needles clicking hymns of approval. Never thought I'd live to see a Klein boy hitched to joy, she confided to Daniel over tea, her eyes misty behind bifocals. Gino shipped crates of imported chestnuts, tossing in a bottle of grappa with a wink. For toasting the amore, Capice. Even Tyler popped in. Man bun evolved to a top knot, bearing artisanal bitters for eggnog. Heard Eddie's in therapy down south, he mentioned casually, stirring his drink. Group for reparative regrets or some shit. Stranger things, right? Matt's reaction was a flicker, hope warring with wariness. His dad's passing had left a void, filled now with stories swapped over the old man's playbook. Pages annotated with Matt's notes. Love legacy. But Eddie remained the thorn, a reminder that family fractures don't always mend neat. Let him stew, Matt said that night, as they collapsed into bed, limbs tangled under quilts heavy as history. We've got our own hearth. Daniel traced the line of Matt's jaw, voice soft in the dark. And if he shows, we welcome him. No more running. Christmas Eve dawned brittle cold, the bakery aglow like a lantern in the snow. Crowds poured in, mill families with mittened kids, churchgoers clutching hymnals, even a busload from the Cleveland Queer Center, faces flushed with camaraderie. Daniel manned the ovens, pulling trays of spice stolen that steamed with cinnamon and secrets, while Matt hawked hot chocolate laced with peppermint schnapps. Laughter rang, carols warbling off-key, the air thick with the miracle of making space for all. Then the door chimed, and time folded. Eddie Klein shuffled in, bundled in a parka too big for his shrunken frame, cheeks chapped red from wind or whiskey. He scanned the room, eyes landing on Matt like a compass finding true north. The chatter dipped, a ripple of recognition, but Daniel caught Matt's subtle nod, steady, inviting. Uncle, Matt said, voice even as risen dough, crossing the floor with a mug in hand. Cocoa? Extra marshmallows. Eddie hesitated, gloved hands fidgeting, before peeling off his hat, revealing hair thinned to silver wisps. Heard about the drive, he mumbled, gaze skittering to the donation bin overflowing with canned goods and cash. Brought this. He thrust a lumpy package forward, a fruitcake, wrapped in foil stamped with a Florida grocery logo, dense as unresolved sins. Matt took it, a grin cracking his face. Brave man. Last one nearly started a war. The icebreaker worked its magic, tentative as first snow. Eddie thawed sip by sip, perching on a stool to watch kids decorate gingerbread men with icing mustaches and pride flags. Daniel hovered at the periphery, heart a drum solo, wary but willing. When Eddie finally met his eyes, it was over a slice of Yule log, chocolate flecked with hazelnut. Heard you saved this place? Eddie grunted, fork pausing midair. Voss was a fool. You ain't. It was an apology, not poetry, but Daniel heard the subtext. A bridge beam laid, creaky but crossing. As midnight told, the crowd thinned to stragglers, and Eddie lingered, nursing his mug. Coach, he started, voice rough. He'd be proud of you, Matt. Even this, a gesture encompassing the shop, the lights, the man at Matt's side. Matt clapped his shoulder, grip firm. Stay for the toast? Eddie nodded, and when the clock struck, they raised glasses, three men, unlikely trinity, to hearths unbroken. New Year's brought expansion fever. With savings swelled by holiday hauls, Daniel and Matt scouted the Old Mill District for a satellite shop, Hearth Outpost, a grab-and-go spot with drive-through for shift workers, recipes tweaked for busy lives, protein-packed muffins with quinoa from the co-op, vegan danishes that didn't skimp on soul. Permits dragged, bureaucracy a molasses mix, but Tyler greased wheels with City Hall connections. Queer-owned businesses get a bump these days, he quipped over blueprints. Diversity dough, baby. Spring sprouted green and greedy, the outpost breaking ground amid cherry blossoms. Daniel threw himself into design. Solar panels for EcoCred, a community board for local artists, a Share Your Story corner where patrons could pin notes of coming out courage or small wins. Matt handled hires, scouting talent from culinary school fairs, a non-binary barista with tattooed timelines, a trans teen prodigy at pie lattices. "We're building more than walls," Matt said one dusk, as they surveyed the site, dirt under nails and dreams in their eyes. "A damn beacon, but beacons draw moths." Rival bakers from Toledo grumbled, "Fancy fags stealing our thunder," and online trolls trolled, review bombing with 1 stars and slurs. Daniel countered with transparency. Live streams of bakes, Q&As on inclusivity. It worked. Virality a viral glaze, drawing foodie pilgrims from Columbus. Then came the offer, a chain from Pittsburgh sniffing expansion, dangling 6 figures for the Hearth brand. Think Empire, the suit pitched over steak at the diner, tie crisp as pie crust. Franchise it. Go national. Daniel and Matt mulled at nights on the porch, rocking chairs creaking like old bones. "Money's sweet," Matt admitted, feet propped on the rail. "But this," a sweep toward the town lights twinkling below. "It's ours. Soul food, not shelf-stable." Daniel nodded, leaning into him. "Keep it indie. Bake for the heart, not the boardroom." They turned it down flat, the suit scoff echoing harmless as a popped bubble. Summer simmered with success, the outpost opening to fanfare. Ribbon cut by the mayor, a closet ally with a wink, lines snaking to the river. Eddie even drove up from Florida, unannounced, bearing a potted palm. "For the vibe," he deadpanned, and stayed for the barbecue, awkward but attending. Therapy had sanded his edges. He confessed over ribs, voice low. "Lost too much hating. Don't want to lose more." Fall's harvest fair crowned the year. Hearth tents dominating the grounds with pumpkin spice everything and apple cider donuts that dripped autumn. Daniel judged the pie contest, Matt emceeing with mic in hand, their rings catching sun like hidden gems. A young couple approached post-win, hands clasped, nerves electric, thanking them for the safe space sign that had given them courage to come out. "You baked our wedding cake," the groom said, blushing. "Now we're paying it forward." That night, under stars sharp as sprinkles, Daniel pulled Matt into the tent's shadows. "We're doing it," he murmured, lips brushing ear. "Changing the recipe." Matt's hands spanned his waist, anchoring. "1 loaf at a time, but change stirs sediment." As leaves turned, whispers returned, not hate, but envy. A local developer, slick as silicone, eyed the Mill District for condos, pressuring with eminent domain threats. Progress, he schmoozed at chamber meetings, but Daniel smelled greed, rank as burnt sugar. Matt rallied allies. Petitions signed at the counter, town halls packed with pitchfork pragmatism. "This ain't just shops," Matt thundered one evening, voice carrying like a sermon. "It's home." The fight peaked in November, snow dusting the hearing like powdered sugar. Daniel testified, words measured as meringue. "We rose from nothing, fired, fought, forgave. Don't raise what we've built." Cheers erupted, the board tabling the proposal. Victory tasted like victory rolls, warm and weedy. Winter circled back, softer now, with a nursery blueprint tucked in Daniel's apron. IVF consults booked, dreams of tiny hands in dough. Eddie called weakly, voice gruff with granduncle aspirations. Elmwood exhaled, exuberant, hearth's glow a constant, proof that love, once leavened, lifts all. The IVF news settled over Daniel and Matt like a light dusting of snow, promising, pure, but melting under scrutiny's heat. Consults in Cleveland's gleaming clinics painted pictures vivid as royal icing. Donor matches, hormone timelines, the miracle of science scripting family from fragments. "We'll be dads," Matt whispered post-appointment, gripping the wheel white-knuckled on the drive home, eyes bright as fresh glaze. Daniel squeezed his thigh, heart a flutter of yeast. Tiny bakers in the making. God help Elmwood. Spring unfurled with fertility's fickle dance. Shots and scans, hope's high-wire act. Daniel journaled it all in a leather-bound book. Pages filling with sketches of cribs shaped like mixing bowls. Recipes for baby's first puree pie. The bakery hummed on. Outpost thriving. But mornings now blurred to nausea. Evenings to exhaustion. Matt mother-hennied with herbal teas and foot rubs. His broad frame a fortress. "You're glowing," he'd tease, kissing Daniel's temple, though the mirror showed shadows like under-eye flour. Elmwood intuited, whispers turning whimsical. Harper Klein's nesting. Grandma Ellis knit booties in rainbow yarns, dropping them off with scones and sage nods. Breathe through it, love. Miracles take time. Gino sent Sicilian fertility charms. Tiny cornicellos dangling from a care package of olives and optimism. Even Eddie wired a check. For the wee ones, scrawled on the memo, his gruff thaw complete. But summer scorched the dream. The call came mid-shift, oven mitts scorching Daniel's palms as the nurse's voice cracked. "No viable embryo this round. Let's discuss options." He hung up in the walk-in, back against the chill, tears freezing on lashes. Matt found him there, pulling him into arms that smelled of sage and steadiness. "We try again," Matt vowed, voice muffled in Daniel's hair. "Or adopt. Or foster. Hell, we'll bake a family from scratch." They mourned quiet that night. Ice cream straight from the tub. Old movies flickering like faulty bulbs. Grief a necessary rest before the next rise. Fall's fair brought balm. A booth for Family Futures drew locals sharing stories. Adoption tales from the shelter. Foster journeys laced with laughs. Daniel manned it, voice steady, handing out cards for support groups. The teen, all gangly limbs and guarded eyes, lingered. "You guys. You're why I told my folks." "Thanks." Matt slung an arm around Daniel, pride swelling. "Kid, that's the real recipe." Winter whispered second chances. A new donor, a fresh cycle, hope rekindled, cautious as kindling. Daniel blogged it anonymously for the bakery site. Baking life, our family journey, posts raw with vulnerability, drawing messages like moths to flame. "You're brave," one read from a Chicago dad. "Inspiring," from a nurse in Napa. Elmwood echoed. Fundraisers at the counter, bun in the oven teas selling out. Spring bloomed breakthrough positive test. A tiny heartbeat flickering on ultrasound like a pilot light. "It's twins," the doc announced, and Daniel laughed through tears, clutching Matt's hand. Double trouble. Double love. News rippled joyous. Grandma's whoops over the phone. Eddie's cigar lit in premature celebration. The bakery rebranded the special. Double blessing buns. Cinnamon swirled with extra heart. Pregnancy painted Daniel in pastels. Belly rounding like proofed loaves. Cravings for pickles in pie crust appeased by Matt's midnight runs. He scaled back shifts. perching on a stool to consult on designs. While Matt expanded the team that trans teen now head baker, lattices latticed with legacy. "You're nesting the next gen," she joked, handing over a whisk. "We got the dough." Summer swelled with swells. Baby shower in the outpost. Blue and pink streamers tangled like dreams. Guests gifting onesies embroidered with rolling pins. Eddie flew up, sober and suited, toasting awkward, to blood and chosen. "Don't screw it up." Hugs followed, stiff but sincere, the family knot tightening. Fall's harvest brought harvest. Twins at 36 weeks. A boy and girl, Caleb and Lila. Names pulled from old recipe cards. Caleb's rutabaga pie. Lila's lavender scones. NICU haze lifted to homecoming. Elmwood lining the streets with balloons and banners. "Welcome, little loaves." The sign read, hearth staff in aprons like honor guard. Parenting proved the ultimate bake. Sleepless nights needing colic from tiny bellies. Days of discovery. First smiles sticky as jam. Daniel and Matt tag-teamed. Bakery mornings yielding to bottle feeds. Evenings to story hours with tales of the cooler kiss. Once upon a time, Matt would rumble. Two guys found magic in the flour. Challenges crumbed in. Caleb's reflux like a bad batch. Lila's teething tantrums echoing off walls. Eddie visited monthly, hands tentative on the tots, teaching them football grips on stuffed toys. "Softens a man," he admitted once, bouncing Lila on knee. Like good bread. The bakery evolved. A parent's pause corner with high chairs and heat lamps for midnight pumps. Playdates doubling as pop-ups. Viral again. Queer Dads Do Dough. Drawing media from Columbus. Features in Midwest mags. From Fired to Fatherhood. The headline crowed. Daniel's story a beacon for Rust Belt resilience. Winter's first birthday dawned double delight. Cakes tiered twin high. Smashable with glee. Guests crammed the shop. Gino via video. Toasting limoncello laced cheers. As candles flickered, Daniel caught Matt's eye across the chaos. Love a constant leaven. "We did this," he mouthed. Matt winked. Baking beauty. Spring cycled new hires. Fall fairs with family floats. Eddie's letters turned to visits. Grandkids his gruff grace. Elmwood, once wary, warmed wholesale. Pride parades with hearth floats. Ally workshops in the outpost. Twins toddled, terrorizing trays with tiny tyrant's touches, teaching Daniel and Matt the art of imperfection. Burnt edges make the best bites. Years layered like strudel. School runs amid supply runs. PTA meetings laced with pie. Caleb's soccer dreams echoed coaches. Lila's art bloomed wild as weeds. Challenges came. Teen rebellions like rising riots. Bakery slumps in economic dips. But they punched down, reshaped, rose anew. One anniversary, under that same harvest moon, Matt pulled Daniel to the corn maze's heart. "Still my best bake," he murmured. "Ring glinting duel now." Daniel leaned in, world whole. And rising, decade dawned deliberate. Elmwood's edges softened to curves by time's gentle need. Harlan's hearth stood sentinel. Original shop a landmark. Outpost a hub. A third in Akron budding like bold ambition. Daniel, 38 now, traded aprons for oversight. His frame filled with fatherhood's fine lines. Hair dusted silver at the temples like cinnamon sugar. Matt, 42. Still the muscle in the kitchen. Laugh lines etching maps of mirth. Body a testament to love's labor. Broad, unbowed. The twins turned 10 in tandem. Birthdays a boisterous bash blending soccer scrimmages and sculpture sessions. Caleb's cleats caked in clay from Lila's latest masterpiece. Dad 1 versus Dad 2, Caleb teased at breakfast. Syrup-smeared grin challenging. Who makes the better pancake tower? Daniel feigned offense, flipping a flapjack high. Artistry, kid. Watch the architect. Matt countered with stacks stacked skyward. But mine got heart. Extra hugs per layer. Laughter filled the kitchen. A symphony of sticky success. Parenting's poetry shifted. Elementary end-of-days yielding to tween tempests. Caleb chafed at conformity. Sports his outlet but crushes confusing. A classmate's blush sparking sleepover sit-downs. Like you and Papa? He'd ask, eyes wide. Daniel nodded, voice velvet. Exactly. Love's no straight line. Lila leaned lyrical. Poems pinned to fridge like manifestos. Her first parade float a rainbow river of recycled cans. For the ones like us, she declared, glue gun in fist. Matt beamed. Our little revolutionary, Eddie, graying guardian, relocated north, a bungalow blocks away. Gruff uncle evolved to doting grandpa. Teachin' em right, he'd grunt over checkers. Caleb on lap, Lila sketching his portrait. Therapy's toll showed in tremors. But so did tenderness. Stories of coach softened. Regrets rolled out like dough. Wasted years hatin'. He'd confess to Daniel over decaf. Voice a rumble subdued. You showed me grace. Paying it forward. The bakery's blueprint broadened. Corporate overtures rebuffed again. Focus on farm-to-fork with local LGBTQ+ farmers. Queer-owned orchards supplying queer-coded quinces. Daniel mentored at culinary camps. Tales of his firing a fable of fortitude. Turned out, the best revenge is rising. Matt coached community leagues. Inclusive to all. Jerseys stitched with Team Hearth. Challenges charred the calm. A recession's ripple closing diners. Supply chains snapped like brittle wafers. Daniel and Matt hunkered, innovating subscription boxes of Survivor sweets, bundles for food banks with stories of sustenance. We fed Elmwood through worse, Matt said, boxing loaves late, twins asleep upstairs. Daniel kissed his flour-dusted brow. And we'll feast again. Summer's 20th anniversary shimmered serendipitous. They escaped to the cabin by Lake Erie, rented yearly ritual, now with teens in tow. Bonfires crackled confessions. Caleb's coming out, casual as casting lines. I'm bi, like that fisherman Uncle Gino talks about. Hugs heaped, Matt's proud as punch echoing waves. Lila layered on, and I'm non-binary, folks. They slashed them, please. Daniel's heart swelled oceanic. Our perfect proof. Fall's fair finale featured family. Twins judging juniors. Eddie's MC stint stumbling sweet. A rival review stung. Overhyped nostalgia. But patrons parried with praise. Loyalty 11 unbreakable. Winter whispered legacy. Retirement rumblings. Succession sketched for the sibs. You two built this, Tyler noted over eggnog. Now a venture partner in veg. Pass the torch proud. Daniel demurred. Not yet. More magic to mix. Spring surprise. Lila's scholarship to art school. Caleb's captaincy. Graduation galas gleamed. Gowns and cleats mingling in mayhem. Eddie danced, halting, heartfelt with Daniel to an old Sinatra swing. Full circle, he rasped, eyes wet. Thanks for the spin. Summer cycled south. A sabbatical in Savannah. Queer history haunts and honeysuckle haunts. Matt proposed redux on a pier. Ring upgraded but vow unchanged. Forever's our flavor. Daniel's yes was yawnsome. Yawn a yawn of yes. Fall folded fortunes. Hearth hit national nods. Best bakery heartland plaque polished proud. Threats, faded footnotes. Hates heat cooled to embers. Winter's wonder. Grandbabies glimpsed in dreams. But for now, twins' twilights treasured. One eve, ovens cooling, family fed. Daniel and Matt swayed slow in the kitchen's hush. From that kiss, Daniel murmured, cheek to chest. To this symphony, Matt's hum harmonized. Best damn bake. Elmwood endured, evolved, a tapestry of trials transmuted to triumphs. Harlan's ghost, ground to fine flour, sifted out. In its stead, a hearth eternal, where fired souls forged family, betrayal baked to belonging, love the ultimate leaven. And in that American heartland hollow, Daniel Harper and Matthew Klein rose, together, unyielding, utterly unbroken,